is WWNN Pompano Beach and 95.3 FM W237BD Boca Raton, the Health and Wealth Radio Network.
Please welcome a new sponsor to the show. It's AMP2 TV, the first and only internet network that's truly plugged in. When you're looking for a full-service internet television production company, discover AMP2 TV, a full-service production company that can provide all streaming videos in studio or remotely. They offer web page development, and they use all the latest platforms to help make your business selling points more powerful. They can do remotes and live streaming, as well as tape productions. Let AMP2 TV handle all of your television production needs. Choose from a variety of creative TV and radio packages and see why AMP2 TV works with many major companies, including Comcast, Bravo, and Fox 29, as well as individuals and businesses of all types and sizes. To see samples of their work or to find out more, visit their website at amp2.tv. That's AMP2.TV. Or call them at 1-866-224-5422. That's 866-224-5422.
Dr. Candace Colella of Colella Cosmetic Dentistry in Coconut Creek provides family and cosmetic dentistry for patients of all ages and is the only dentist in South Florida offering Solea laser dentistry. No pain, no anesthesia, no shots. With over 23 years of experience, Dr. Colella does fast braces, dental implants, veneers, and more. She can even finish off your smile with Botox, fillers, and lip augmentation. Call 954-428-6923 or visit yoursensationalsmile.com.
Ivy Lee's Luxe Makeup and Beauty Lounge in downtown Boca Raton does fabulous professional makeup application. Make an appointment today and see how glamorous you can look. Call 561-409-4065 to book your appointment. Ivy Lee's Luxe Makeup and Beauty Lounge is located at 233 South Federal Highway on the first floor of the Boca Grand Building in Boca Raton. The number again is 561-409-4065.
The opinions expressed on the following sponsored program are strictly those of the host, guests, and callers, and not necessarily those of this station, its staff, management, or sponsors.
It's the Becky and Boca Show, coming to you live every Thursday night at 6 p.m. from glamorous downtown Boca Raton. I'll show you how to live life in style in one of the country's most elegant cities, nestled right along the beautiful Atlantic beaches between Palm Beach and Miami. So sit back, relax, and let me show you how to indulge yourself Boca style.
Hello, welcome to the Becky and Boca Show. Tonight, I want to ask the question to all you ladies out there. Are any of you afraid that your man is going to be stolen by a younger woman? Even in the back of your mind? I think it's something that a lot of people worry about. And if you've watched some of my shows for the last few weeks, you've seen that there are women out there that prey upon older, wealthier, or famous men and will go to great extremes to get those men. And that's a little bit scary. So I have brought in, I call these guys the Sex Brothers. They're they have another show on this network, Sex with the Siegel Brothers. I have Larry Siegel and Dr. Richard Siegel, and I'm going to let you guys tell me what your titles are because I get them a little confused. This is Larry.
Larry Siegel. I'm a clinical sexologist and a certified sexuality educator.
Okay.
And I'm a sex therapist.
Okay.
And educator as well.
So between the two of you, I hope you're going to be able to answer all of my questions here and tell women what they really have to fear about other women going after their men. And it's all on you guys.
Well, we're really happy to be back. Last time we had such a blast.
That was one of my favorite shows.
Sure.
That's why I invited you back. It was actually a friend of mine, Ivy Sims. She owns Ivy Lee's Beauty Lounge along with Lisa. And Ivy said to me, you know, Becky, you got so many negative comments from interviewing that woman. You got to flip this around because all of your viewers now are scared of women like her. So you have to flip this around and tell them how to avoid these problems. And that's you guys going to do that, right?
Mm-hmm.
Hope so.
Sure.
Okay, so
doesn't mean they won't get upset with the answers, but
right.
Okay, I don't even know where to begin here. But my big question is, and my girlfriends and I kind of joke around about this a lot when you see these younger women going for very older men, 20, 30 years older.
Mm-hmm.
My girlfriends say not one of these young women is actually thinking, I want old man sex. So what is the thought process there?
Okay. Well, I kind of have to just qualify a lot of what at least I have to say. And it's kind of a standard thing. These kinds of questions, these kinds of issues, the answer initially is it depends.
Right.
There are times where we are looking at some underlying things that are going on, and there are times where it really is a preference. There are a lot.
That's really a preference?
It's really a preference.
A 35-year-old woman want to sleep with a 65-year-old man?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Well,
in
remember
many cases, yes.
how the one guy that always comes to mind for me is Sean Connery.
Okay.
And I would hear how women talked about him even when he was like in his 70s, and I think, really? Women think he's sexy? Guys have always been given that sort of grace to age and be distinguished, where, the women, they'd say, would hit the wall. So the double standard in Hollywood was part of it.
Okay.
There's, we're talking about like kinks and paraphilias. There are guys there's something called gerontophilia, where guys really are sexually turned on by 80, 90-year-old women.
That's a thing?
It's a thing.
Oh, wow.
First of all, if you can think of it, it's a thing.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's internet rule number 34.
Right.
If somebody thought of it, there's porn of it, and somebody's doing it right now.
Okay, but what makes an attractive young woman decide that she's going to go after a guy twice her age?
Again, I want to also point out there's an inherent bias in the question.
Right, yeah, no.
That an older guy is not necessarily old.
No, I'm not saying they're old.
No, but there is that kind of connotation that's a part of that.
Okay.
Like a 35-year-old woman, what could she possibly see in a 65-year-old guy? Because he's old.
Right.
All right. And I think that's really the framing.
Yes,
not
it is.
that he's experienced, not that he has a way of knowing how to treat women better. And that's a big factor in a lot of this. And I can say from personal experience, but the sense of treating women in a particular way.
Okay, so
I think a lot of it could start in high school. When you think about it, in adolescence, girls mature quicker than boys.
Right.
In every way except one. And the one way that they don't is usually the way boys learn to manipulate and take advantage, right? So if you have two 15-year-olds, 15-year-old Skippy, who still thinks, lighting farts and flicking boogers is funny, and if he's going to take a girl out on a date, he has to have dad drive in the station wagon, and right?
Okay.
And the 15-year-old girl thinks he's an idiot and a child.
Right.
So a 17 or 18-year-old guy is much more attractive because he's a little more sophisticated, probably has a car.
Maybe drives, right?
So they start at a young age looking for older men.
But that where they don't mature quicker than guys is all the kind of fantasy, love, romance stuff, and that's where guys learn to, I hate to start so cynically, but part of the script is often
it's true.
Make your move, take a look for the opportunity.
Right. Okay, to manipulate women into believing there's some kind of romance there.
That, I'll love you forever tonight.
Right, exactly.
Okay,
so there really are some legitimate dynamics, right? So for a discussion like this, we can have to look at it in a number of different ways. There are those where it is it is an actually very positive, very sexual, very erotic, very mutual kind of relationship. But then, where I think the default tends to go to is you've got a lot of these women with issues. A lot of these women, it's often been asked. I think you even asked, is there really such a thing as having daddy issues? And absolutely, yes.
And what exactly are those?
Well, a lot of it is if they're not getting the attention, if they never got the love or the affection from their father, if they were abandoned by their father, this may play out in trying to make up for that by having a relationship and getting the affection and the acceptance from an older guy.
Okay. Okay.
But see, the problem with those kind of dynamics, why it ends up being unhealthy more often than not, is if he's really kind of in this daddy role and she's more like this needy kid, that's not erotic.
Yeah,
Right.
I was going to ask about that. How does
Right.
sex factor into
We
that?
have a natural, it's kind of normal to not be turned on by
your dad.
mom or your dad.
Right.
Yeah. Okay.
Right, when couples get into these kinds of fights and dysfunctions, usually what I see in my sex therapy practice, it's reminding them, even when they have kids, yeah, you're their parents, you're not each other's parents. You have to stay lovers through. I mean, isn't it ironic that the physical manifestation of a couple's love, or at least affection for each other, is this child?
Yes.
But then it turns them into mommy and daddy, and they're not
Well,
turned on.
that's another thing, question I wanted to ask you guys. I might have added it before I gave these to you, but some of my girlfriends said to ask you about, it's all romantic when you first get married and then you start having kids and then romance goes right out the window. Is this normal because the man is just supposed to reproduce and get the heck out of there?
Well, I mean, not so much for that reason. I
Okay.
think, other than there is, the repetition factor, there is the familiarity factor. As people take on the role of parent and partner, it tends to become less and less erotic.
Right, it's no longer
Right?
sexy.
Right.
It's another-
Plus, if a guy is there, and we've talked about this for many years, we've always had ambivalence about men being in the delivery room.
Some
because-
guys just have no
Oh.
business.
Yeah.
Some guys have no business
Right.
being in there.
And even
Yeah.
guys that are okay with it, there are some
Well, you
things
think
you
that
can
can
never
ruin-
unsee.
Yeah.
Oh, so that can
Yeah, yeah.
ruin their
Yeah.
attraction to their wife.
Yeah, it really
Absolutely.
can.
Oh.
They see what's always been just the symbol of lustful, sexy attraction has
Is now-
That's
served
right.
its other function, its other natural biological function as the birth canal, but that's also not very erotic.
Oh,
Right.
interesting.
And it's messy.
And it's messy.
and it's hard, the screaming and the pain. I mean, there's
A lot of
again,
guys are
anybody that's
terrified.
ever seen a birth,
So you're saying
beautiful is not the first word that comes to
some
mind.
men might be turned off from that point on.
It does happen to some.
Yeah.
some
It can kind
Oh,
of
okay.
short circuit the erotic patterns that are there.
There's
Wow.
another, if you want to get into some like deep psychological issues, there's something Freud described called the Madonna whore dilemma.
Yeah.
Best illustration is like your Tony Soprano kind of character, right? Where you meet a woman, fall in love, get married, have kids, but then she becomes like this virgin Madonna figure again.
Right.
Vagina
Put on a
seals
pedestal.
up, like
Okay.
magically. And so now sex with the wife, like there was a great line, remember that movie, Analyze This, with Robert De Niro?
Yeah.
Says, what, with my wife? That's the mouth that kisses my kids goodnight.
Yeah.
Yeah,
okay.
exactly.
Okay,
So
so you
she's
answered
no
my
longer
question.
an erotic
Sometimes
figure.
having kids.
So they have a Gumara in an
Is the-
apartment down, you need
Yeah.
a dirty girl or a fun girl.
Right.
Right.
Okay.
And
Right.
that's that
Right.
causes that split.
So that's a
There's
time
not two
when
kinds of
I
women.
wanted to ask you, when men become very vulnerable to people like the woman I interviewed. Is
Absolutely.
that when they start having children?
Well, I mean, it depends again,
Okay.
but very often after that child, that parent line gets crossed in the relationship. But it's also about novelty. It's also about predictability
Buying a new car
and
every 2 years.
familiarity. Exactly.
Yeah.
A dear friend of ours,
the
Esther
honeymoon
Perel,
has to end.
Yeah.
right, had in a book called Mating in Captivity, talks about how the things that people look to achieve in their relationships, the things that people strive for, safety, trust, companionship,
Nesting.
predictability, all of that kills eroticism. Kills it.
Is there a shelf life for eroticism when someone first meets? Is it 2 years, something like that, and then?
Well, you know what they used to call the 7-year itch?
yeah. So
I
it's 7
actually
years.
read a paper. No, they said nowadays it's probably more
5.
like 4 years
Yeah.
or 5
Okay.
years. But none of that is inevitable.
Right.
You say normal or typical because that's the slide.
Right.
But
There are ways to
couple-
prevent that.
Of
Yes,
course. A
absolutely.
couple can
Well, I
be
think my viewers would like to know what
right?
what the
Here's
ways
another
are.
irony that's driven us crazy for years.
Okay.
The very process, the thing that makes people obstetric patients doesn't get talked about through the entire time that they're obstetric patients.
Right.
So-
with their
I
obstetrician
see what you're saying.
gynecologist.
Right.
It's
right.
a very
okay.
sexless,
Yeah.
neutered kind of thing. It's all focused on the baby. And then after delivery, what do they typically say? Go home, enjoy your new baby, no sex for 6 weeks. What a horrible, horrible thing to say.
Yeah.
Why? First of all, they don't
that's
explain.
your party message.
Maybe lay off intercourse for a while if there was an episiotomy, but by all means, have plenty of sex. Remember that you're lovers. And
Reconnect erotically.
But, they're focusing on the baby, too. They can't give their husband all the attention. So
And
I would think that's a very vulnerable time
Absolutely. And there's an element, and again, that is supposed to be with that. There is a biological aspect of that. When a woman gives birth, she is now wired to be a mother, not a lover. At least for a period of time.
To bond.
Right.
And men too, right?
Well, and it's again one of the things that people like hearing about, and again for especially new moms, there is often the husband or the male partner bugging for sex
And
because
feeling a little left out.
Left out, absolutely. And for even seeing a woman breastfeeding. It's like, I used to do that.
Yeah.
Can I have the other? No. So even the baby can sometimes push them away. But for guys that are, again, starting to get, that horny up, they're starting to really bug, if a woman just has him hold the baby.
Especially if the baby's crying.
Oh, yeah, especially.
Why? What does that do?
Well, just like a woman who's breastfeeding, if she hears a baby, even in a distance, even another animal, it could be a puppy or a kitten, she'll start lactating.
Okay.
Hearing the baby crying will produce this prolactin release, this hormone event that'll cause her to let down her milk. If a guy is holding a baby, his testosterone will drop, his prolactin level will increase, vasopressin will increase.
He won't be so horny
and he's not going to be
anymore.
horny
You're
anymore.
kidding. I did not know that.
Yeah.
So all you got to do is hand the baby
So,
to
so don't get into an argument. Don't get into a fight. Just give him the baby.
hand them the baby.
Yeah.
But
That's very
make
interesting.
a plan. Try and get a babysitter.
Yeah.
Make time
to
for each other.
prioritize the
Absolutely.
relationship.
Yeah.
Remember that
Absolutely.
you're lovers. I think more than anything else, as a sex therapist, I'm reminding couples that they were lovers.
Yeah, that's how they got.
Forget
That's how they
that.
got those kids.
Right?
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. But again, there's energy issues.
Right.
You're
Sure, why not?
tired.
Absolutely.
So that's part of how they have to re-strategize as well. Take the energy factor into account.
Okay. Now I want to ask you: in a place like Boca Raton, there's a lot of men driving around fancy cars, dressed to the nines, fancy watches, big homes, things like that. Are those? Is that it?
Small penis cars.
Yeah.
Okay. So are you saying the main reason a guy would buy a Ferrari is so a woman looks at him, correct?
Well, no, they're fun to drive. I mean,
Okay.
there is the reality, the
old
toy
ideas
aspect
Toyotas
of
are
it.
fun
Sure.
to drive.
Chick
Not like a Ferrari. Sure. But
Okay,
yeah,
but the
there is
main reason-
that element.
Okay, so
Sure.
if a woman's husband were to go out and buy a red Ferrari and they've been married 20 years or so, should she be worried?
worry?
Yeah.
I don't know if worry is the word, but she should at least maybe take that as a sign that
sign.
something's going on in him.
Okay,
Most
so
likely-
what could the woman do then?
Okay, most likely he's having just a very typical midlife crisis, seeing his youth, the little gray, little wrinkles. So it's just kind of grasping at some more vitality. And what she can do, what they both can do, is to make sure they're maintaining an erotic marriage so that they don't
So you're
start
saying if they
feeling
maintain
old.
an erotic marriage, the man is immune to the younger woman that comes onto him because she sees that red Ferrari?
Well, he's-
Immune? No, but it becomes less powerful.
Okay.
This vulnerable and immune and stuff like that, we were talking about this on the drive up today. Always recalls this idea from, it was Bill Maher,
Bill Maher.
right? Or Chris Rock?
Bill Maher.
Bill Maher. That men are only as faithful as their options.
Right. Well, when you get a
Right.
red Ferrari, you have more options.
Right.
Yeah. That's,
But again, a lot of it is also, too, remember, it's more about ego stroking. It's more
Yes.
about the attention.
Yes.
It's more about the validation. If a
Yes.
young woman is hitting on an older guy or just giving him attention, that's an ego stroke. That's a valid. You know what? I'm not an old guy. I'm
Right.
not past my prime. Maybe I still have it. That's really where the validation comes
And so
in.
a lot of these young women that are maybe looking for wealthy men are pretty skilled at that, I would assume.
Probably.
They understand that.
And would probably have a good idea or a good sense of who would be sort of vulnerable to their charm, so to speak. Because I also don't want to have a picture painted that men are victims.
Yeah.
A man who is falling for the charms of a younger woman, he's
but
not a
now,
victim. He's making a
but
choice.
let me tell you this. When I had this woman on, under one of the videos, we got 250 comments. All of them were negative comments against her, calling
Right.
her horrible names for what
Right.
she did. Only one was a negative comment about the guy, and all it said was, he
Really?
sure can pick him. So nobody seemed to
Right.
blame. And most of these were comments from
blamed her
women,
like
and they
she
blamed
was-
her.
And unfortunately,
not
that often
the
is the
guy.
way it works.
Yeah.
That's often the way
he
it works.
was,
It's
I
always
was
set up
thinking,
that way.
well, it took two to do
Right.
this.
Sure.
Right, because
So-
they're, again, part of the script that we have. And, we hear this played out in so many different ways, even from a young age. There's some message that gets reinforced over and over and over again that sexually men cannot control themselves.
Yes.
Men are
That's what it-
incapable
that's what it seemed like with
of
these comments.
basically
Right.
making conscious and
Right.
deliberate decisions.
If this woman goes
And that's
after
just
them,
not
they're going to
true.
fall.
You're right.
The
Right.
fact that men make poor decisions sometimes doesn't mean that they can't help themselves. They're very much helping themselves. It's a very deliberate decision.
The deliberate decision.
Yeah.
Yes, I think
Okay.
also the unfortunate reality that sex too often is commodified,
Mm-hmm.
which really it's not that much of a stretch to say that's what prostitution is.
Well,
Well,
yeah.
sure.
This
Yeah.
idea
Oh, I
that if
know.
I spend money or if I have lots of money, which signals you
Right.
can get some of this, then sex is
Well,
another
that's what I was
commodity.
wondering.
Right.
Also, with these older guys, let's say there's a 65-year-old and a 30-year-old woman is coming on to him. Does he understand that it's for what he has that she can get, or does he think she's crazy about him?
Larry's answer.
Larry?
It depends.
It depends.
Sometimes, yes, guys are naive and really fall for
Yeah.
that
Right,
kind
and
of
are easily
play.
played.
You see that happen?
Yeah.
Sometimes there's real, connection, real maturity and healthy. Dear friends of ours just married, and he's a couple years younger than me, and his bride is a year younger than my daughter.
Ooh, okay.
But there's such a soulmate connection, and she's such an old soul that there's no creepy factor at all. They're just really
What's the age
perfect
difference?
together. About 25 years.
So statistically, do they have a chance?
Well, yeah, but again, you kind of alluded to this, or maybe it was our earlier conversation. When she's 40-something, she's likely going to be taking care of a guy that's pushing
Well, yeah.
70.
She's to be changing 2 sets of diapers.
Right, and you really have to think about that. Yeah.
Now,
Yeah, that is an issue.
excitement, that lust, that honeymoon phase, that term limerence, we're crazy. Nobody thinks the future. The
Right.
future is like next week. But talking about forming a healthy relationship. I know this is going to be
because with a 30-year age difference, a woman could be 60 with a 90-year-old.
right.
Okay.
I was just going to say this. I apologize how horrible this sounds, but I just really never was able to quite swallow the idea that Anna Nicole Smith really, really loved
Yes.
that crypt keeper of he was somewhere between 85 and 200 years old.
Yeah.
Right.
And
Who was
she's-
pretty non-functional on virtually
Yeah.
every
Yeah.
level.
Yeah.
So
And she
Right.
loved him, and they had
Yes.
such wonderful sex life, and
Yeah.
Did she ever get the money?
I think so.
Oh, she died.
she got
though.
some, yeah.
Yeah,
I mean,
okay.
there was a big family fight
Yeah, I
going
know.
on and all of that.
The
right.
son was fighting
Yeah.
the thing.
Didn't
Yeah.
end well,
Yeah.
sadly.
No.
But you see,
And that's the stereotype of the gold digger,
Right.
And then the script got switched with the rise of the cougar and the powerful.
yes, there are a
right,
lot of
powerful
women
with
these
the
days going for
25-year-old
younger men.
guy.
Yeah.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
That's becoming more and more common. But I don't know. You don't see as many of those as you do the opposite in Boca Raton, maybe in other places.
Well, it's, and I'll just say it this way, and at the risk of getting comments, but the reality is, it's still a man's world.
Yeah.
And the dynamic that is more socially acceptable is still older man, younger
Right.
woman. People will look at an older man with a younger woman and maybe look at them and say, "Oh, he must be rich."
Right.
Yeah.
Right? They look at a younger
do poor guys get
man
this?
with an older woman. It's basically, what's wrong with them?
Yeah.
Right? It seems it's looked at more pathologically.
Right. No, you're absolutely
Yeah,
right.
that's
You are
really sad.
absolutely right. Yes. Okay. Do you think these older men are taking advantage of these younger women? Because
Some may.
if the man understands why the
Well,
woman is
again,
coming
if
after
there's
them,
a kind of a more than just sexual, an intellectual and a real connection, then adults are adults.
Right.
Then, when if you have a 15-year-old dating a 30-year-old, it's creepy. But if you have a 30-year-old dating a 55-year-old, it's not necessarily
Yeah.
That
little
creepy
more
factor.
acceptable.
People
Okay.
relating as adults. But
Okay.
again, if you have a woman with daddy issues who's like clingy, needy, looking to be taken care of, or a guy who maybe can't relate well to women his own age and has this kind of daddy complex. We've been in academia for 30 years. It's not uncommon to see a lot of professors dating. Well, it's illegal nowadays, but
only if they're actually
dating their students
in your class right now.
Right.
Former students, it's a different set of rules.
It's okay.
Yeah.
And you get a lot of.
Okay, so they're looking up to their professor, and I can see that they respect him and all of that.
But now again, in high school, if a male teacher has any kind of anything with a student, he's a sex offender.
Right.
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 And there's still the gender double standard where if it's the 14, 15-year-old guy with the 35-year-old hot English teacher, nobody sees him as a victim.
Right.
And again, talk about how arbitrarily these lines are drawn. You have let's say you have a 17-year-old girl who is, let's see, this is what, June, let's say July 2nd is her 18th birthday. So if she starts a relationship with an older guy, today he's a pedophile.
Right.
Next week it's
he's
legal. Right? Well, not really a pedophile, but it would be statutory rape. Right. Next week it would be okay. So again, these lines get very arbitrarily drawn.
Yeah.
But going back to the idea of, where some of those dynamics are, and these older guys that may be exploiting or taking advantage of some of these women, to go back to the word that you used just a few minutes ago, the commodification. Yeah. When the relationship is commodified, one of your questions also you had brought up was about rescue women. When you have these kinds of arrangements.
All right, let's tell our guests what that is. Rescue women, it's kind of a pop culture term right now. Women that may be supporting children, maybe they're divorced, they're having a tough time financially.
Seeking arrangements.
Right? They're looking for an older man that can take it. Right,
yeah, it's a sugar daddy.
Right.
Yeah.
So, that's a common thing. There's a lot of them out there now.
Absolutely.
Yes,
now, there
websites.
are, and again, you talk about who is susceptible to whom. There are some times where it is the woman that's approaching the guy, especially, or putting it out there. There's websites for all this stuff now as well. But putting it out there saying, I will do all of this for you if you support me.
Right.
Right. And in some ways, they're able to have that kind of power edge. But there are guys who are also looking for that. Who say, you know what? I will give you money. I'll pay your bills. I will support you.
They want to rescue these
but
women.
Now it's all on my terms, and it's all about control, and it's all about exploiting that dynamic.
Right.
So again, it depends on where, what kind of setup it ends up being, and who's really taking that power.
So, do you think women in that situation, are they really attracted to these men physically for sex, or is it all about?
Well, if it's a sugar daddy situation, it's about the money.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a business deal. It's a transaction.
Isn't it called Seeking Arrangements? One of those apps.
Yep. Seeking arrangements. There's also sugar daddy.
Yeah,
I think it's absolutely sugardaddy.com. Just just put it right out there.
Okay, let me ask you a question. I'm sure a lot of women would appreciate this question. If a man starts falling for a younger woman and the wife or partner is aware of this, is there a way to nip it in the bud, or is it too late? The man's already invested in the idea of this younger woman. Can you turn it around?
There's a fantasy and reality. There's also secrecy versus privacy. And even therapists sometimes screw up the distinction. So you get a guy who's been married to the same woman for 50 years and says, oh, I don't look at other women. I don't even notice. It's probably lying.
Right.
Probably being very kind and respectful, but...
He could be in a coma.
You're right. Maybe he's gone blind over the years. But
you still smell him.
To say that we don't notice
attractive
so you're saying bodies
so they would
to deny that we're human beings.
Right.
Right? Again, the connection in the relationship, the security in the relationship. Then somebody can say, oh, wow, look at that hot young thing. Doesn't mean that I don't love the partner.
And you're not going to act on it.
I would rather be. It's the same way that women react so strongly to porn sometimes because they mistakenly think that, oh, that's what you really want to be with. And I can't measure up to that. Has nothing
to do with that.
her.
No?
No.
Well, explain that a little bit.
It's selfish fantasy. It's selfish indulgence. It's like, here's a weird comparison. If a wife's been cooking a wonderful filet mignon, fancy dinner, but on the way home from work, the guy just has one of those angel devil impulse control problems and just pulls into the drive-thru and gets a Big Mac. Now it gets home and he's not so hungry, and it turns into a big fight. You don't like my cooking, and you don't. No, he loves her cooking, but he made a stupid choice.
Wanted a Big Mac.
Just felt like a Big Mac.
All right, we got to go to break, and we'll continue this right after the break.
Dr. Candace Colella of Colella Cosmetic Dentistry in Coconut Creek provides family and cosmetic dentistry for patients of all ages and is the only dentist in South Florida offering Solea laser dentistry. No pain, no anesthesia, no shots. With over 23 years of experience, Dr. Colella does fast braces, dental implants, veneers, and more. She can even finish off your smile with Botox, fillers, and lip augmentation. Call 954-428-6923 or visit yoursensationalsmile.com.
You've been listening to and watching The Becky and Boca Show. Ivy Lee's Luxe Makeup and Beauty Lounge in downtown Boca Raton does fabulous professional makeup application. Make an appointment today and see how glamorous you can look. Call 561-409-4065 to book your appointment. Ivy Lee's Luxe Makeup and Beauty Lounge is located at 233 South Federal Highway on the first floor of the Boca Grand Building in Boca Raton. The number again is 561-409-4065. And now, back to the show.
Hello, welcome back to the second half of the Becky and Boca Show. We're talking about young women that come in and steal other women's husbands and partners.
Lock up your men.
I'm with the Sex Brothers, Larry Siegel and Dr. Richard Siegel from the Sex with the Siegel Brothers show, and they're helping us sort all this out. And I was looking at my notes over the break, and one question I have, with these younger women and much older men, there might be some erectile dysfunction issues. Doesn't that cause a problem for these young women? They're thinking, maybe I should just go be with someone my own age?
Not so much. It depends on what dynamic we're looking at. Right. You've got Viagra, Cialis, Levitra.
Does that Viagra work forever?
No.
Forever?
Okay.
No.
So
and for everyone? No.
So
very
men could
high
reach a
failure
point.
rates.
Right. So they could reach a point where that doesn't work.
Right.
Yeah.
It's not that it stops working. It's that it often doesn't work because anxiety is stronger.
Oh, wow.
Right. And guys need to know the best way to lose an erection is to worry about losing an erection.
To worry about it.
And it also requires, because again, most physicians don't necessarily do a very good job about giving instructions for how to take these things. So you have a lot of guys that pop the pill, watch the watch, look at the crotch, watch the watch, look at the crotch, or they'll say, all right, I got a little while now, so let me go wash the car, let me go finish doing this, let me do that, thinking that it's
gonna
after some
let 'em
time,
know when it's
erections
time.
are just going to happen.
Right, like a turkey timer.
Right.
Ding.
Right. Guys need to understand that everything we need to get an erection without Viagra is all the same things we need to get an erection
Which
with
is not a
Viagra.
lot.
Interesting.
It's not a lot. It's just a simple formula: friction and fantasy.
Okay. Okay.
It's got to have an erotic mindset. If you're washing the car and waiting for an erection, ain't
not
gonna
gonna
happen.
Ain't gonna happen. No matter how much
It's not gonna
Viagra
happen.
you got on board.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's again depending on the arrangement that we're talking about, and if it is sort of a transactional thing, the woman is probably actually glad. She's off the hook.
Right. But see, we can globalize this to any relationship, right? If that's a reality, everybody gets older, and we're not the same at 60 as we were at 20.
Sure.
How do people cope with that?
Better.
Right? Yeah. Sometimes better. Sometimes experience and wisdom and loss of inhibition. Something we grew up with, one of these stupid cliches, nobody knows where it comes from, right?
Yeah.
We've all heard this, that men hit their sexual peak at like 18, 21,
Yeah.
and women at 35. That's,
Not true?
It's true, but not physiological.
It depends on how you define it.
Not our bodies,
Yeah.
right? Women are just as right there at 18, 19, 20, 21. But maybe I think that's a social thing. That it takes women an extra decade to be allowed to enjoy their sexuality.
Right.
To lose that inhibition.
Right.
To
Sometimes wait for her kids to be grown.
In our parents' and grandparents' time, women learned about sex when they got married and started having kids. That's horrible.
Right.
Wow.
And we're taught to disconnect from it.
Yeah.
Right? A very, very common script. Years ago, a mom talking to her daughter on her wedding night, and her, motherly advice would be something like, dear, when your father is doing his business, that's when I think of the list of errands and shopping things I need to do for tomorrow. That was the advice, all right? Disconnect, disassociate, think of something else until he's done and gets off of you and leaves you alone.
We heard that English woman that said her mother told her, just lay back and do it for the queen.
Do it for the queen, right.
Do it for the queen.
So, the sexual scripts that are in play. And I think a lot of what we're also kind of, we globally reacting to with a lot of these issues and even this conversation is that these things are changing. Right? A lot of changes. There's a lot of evolution and revolution that's been going on sexually. This boomer generation is unlike any other generation in history. And, I often, when in work that I do with nursing homes and assisted living facilities and work around senior
sex
sexuality.
going on in nursing homes?
More than in younger people. Older people having more sex than younger people. That's just a little given there. But see, that's kind of the point. That part of this change and this evolution. We're coming into our older years now. We're coming into our senior years now with sexual interest that never had before.
Right.
Sexual desire and ability haven't had before. The sexual medicine, sex toys, porn, internet, all these things are changing, have changed the game. So a 60-year-old guy, a 65-year-old guy today is not our father's generation 65-year-old. And again, when we talk about getting older...
Is that why he's looking for the 35-year-old woman?
Well, in some ways, maybe.
Okay.
Yeah. Because there are also guys can, for a number of reasons, including some of those socialization factors that Ricky just mentioned, but guys can come into their older years sometimes more sexual than women.
Oh, okay.
And especially if they're coming out of a relationship, right? Again, it's a man's world, unfortunately. The availability of men in older adults is what determines older women's sexuality.
Oh, okay.
So
you've
the
heard those jokes, right?
and,
About how it goes from looks to money to scintillating conversation to, well, he drives at night.
Right, he's a night driver.
And if he can get an erection with or without Viagra and drive at night, he's a god.
and women outnumber men at that age,
I was going to say, in a lot of these, like Century Village and Kings Point, you have guys dating 2-3 women simultaneously, very often sexually active, and they don't really think to talk about, like, sexually transmitted infections, and they don't have to worry about pregnancy.
Right.
So a lot of these communities are like college dorms.
Wow, I did not know that.
And
Nursing
college
homes,
kids are having
adult
less
communities, orgies.
Orgies.
They do have them. I promise you, they do have them. As a matter of fact, there's an older community in the middle of the state called the Villages. That for most people that have heard of them, you said Villages, orgies.
Really?
That's the association. So yeah, I mean, people are sexual far longer and throughout their entire lives in a way that they never have been before.
But there's realities that we have to adjust.
Absolutely. But again, I think it's important, if we're going to normalize something that comes along with aging, is that yes, adjustments, but not disorders.
Right.
Erectile dysfunction is not a given. It's not a normal part of aging. No sexual problem is. Now, it may take a little bit longer and a little bit more stimulation for a guy to get an erection when he's older. He may have to work a little harder to keep it.
Or to stay in fantasy.
Right?
Yeah,
To
it's all
stay
in the mind, right?
fantasy.
Yeah.
Right. So
Okay.
there are definite adjustments that have to be made. But I mean, I'll just put it out there now that I would say that as a 58-year-old man, I am a far better lover than when I was in my 20s. Far and away. And you know what?
Because?
Last longer and more. I mean, all this because again, I've learned first of all as a man, and this is part of the wisdom. I think the sexual wisdom that can come with getting older. Younger guys, you know, and I do believe sometimes youth truly is wasted on the young.
Yeah.
Right? Can they get erections more frequently? Absolutely. Do they
Right.
know
What
what
do
to
they
do with them?
right.
Not really.
Do they understand women and women's
Exactly.
sexuality?
Yeah.
Exactly.
And how women
So
are different?
learning how to be a good lover and learning that a man is more than a penis is part of the advantage I think that an older man has.
Right.
And as women are maturing earlier than men, I think there are a lot of younger women that do respond to that. They do understand that.
Okay,
And they
so
do
that
actually
explains-
have a better,
experience.
quality experience
Sure.
with an older man than they do with a younger guy.
Throw in a lot of money and it's like,
Then, that's all gravy.
Yeah.
I always think Lyle Lovett had Julia Roberts, and that is not a handsome man.
yeah.
But you know, put on a
Okay.
guitar and he's
Right,
sexy.
right,
That's right.
okay, so I see what you're
That's
saying.
right. So you know, some of those trappings, like you mentioned
Yeah.
before, the Ferrari, you know, the bank account, the really big wallet. That you know, there's an aphrodisiac quality to that.
But you
for a lot
also
of
Certainly.
women.
it also reveals men's insecurity.
Yeah.
See, this is something, another generalization that if women were more aware of, we'd have less of these kinds of problems. Instead of thinking that men are just pig, dog, you know, pick your barnyard animal, thinking about sex all the time and trying those guys that hit on every woman in the club, thinking numbers,
Yeah,
one
sooner
of
or
them is
later,
bound to, right? While that may be true for a lot of guys, that excitement, ooh, goody, can I have sex? Can I have sex? When an opportunity presents itself, there's also this simultaneous, we're on. Every sexual opportunity, every time is a test of our masculinity. Are we going to be big enough
Right.
and say hard enough and last long enough and not finish too soon and not take too long? And
what we
now
call
it's-
performance
now it's
anxiety.
work.
Okay. So
Now
that
it's-
doesn't help with
now it's
the
work.
ED.
Right.
No.
That causes ED.
Right,
Right.
exactly,
Okay.
exactly.
Okay.
Yeah, and you know, and again, I think you know where it does become a problem is you know when there's even the worry that starts, then it becomes obsessive very quickly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then the last thing that's ever going to happen is he's going to get an erection.
Now
Okay.
a guy's in a bar, sees a strange woman clear across the room at the end of the bar, and instead of like saying, "Oh, I'd approach and introduce myself and buy a drink," he's fast forwarding in his head. He's already home, naked,
Yeah, now what are we
failing,
gonna do?
humiliated.
Oh, sure.
Right? So
Sure.
Why don't you find out her name first?
Right. Right.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So,
Okay.
yeah, people are strange. Jim Morrison said that.
Yeah. Okay. Dr. Laura has a mantra. I am my husband's girlfriend. Do you think she's on the right track there? As
Well,
far
first
as
of all,
keeping-
I'd have to say I'm loath to agree with anything that comes out of that woman's
Okay.
Oh,
you don't like
no.
this. You don't like
yeah.
this comment.
But no, I like the idea more than
Comment,
the,
yes.
yeah.
Person, no.
I'll take the
Okay.
message over the messenger.
mouth. Right.
But yes, again, the idea that staying lovers, staying in that.
But how can you stay lovers for 30 years?
Well, staying on the same level. You can be parents. Sometimes you have to be parents when there's kids. You're literally parents, you know, and adult roles and responsibilities and taking care of business and finance and being childlike together. Not childish, but childlike. Moving in and out of these roles. But what happens is it gets crisscrossed. How often do you see a woman with 2 kids complaining about her 3 kids?
Right.
Because she's dealing with poopy diapers and drool and laundry and work, and he's drinking beer with his buddies after work.
Yeah.
Right? If she's in parent mode and he's in like adolescent mode, they're not lovers.
Right.
Then they're going to be in my office saying, "Why don't we have desire for sex?" Well, it's not that they don't have desire for sex; they don't have desire for sex with each other.
With each other.
Right. Yeah.
Maybe someone else. Huh?
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So you know, and again, I think that's you know those roles that's a really important part because we fall into those dynamics because we start, you know, I mean, first of all, people continue relationships the way they start, which is more often than not with assumptions, not with actual communication, not with actual agreement.
Okay.
The assumption is that they're on the same page. And then what happens is, without even realizing it, people start drifting apart. And then before you know it, you're on, either side of this deep chasm that you don't know how to bridge. So the idea of prioritizing the relationship, making conscious this idea that, yeah, we're parents, yeah, we're partners, but we are still lovers. And that has to be a conscious decision, a conscious agreement, and then commit to that. Right? It's amazing. We can have, let's say, if we decide, you know what, we're getting a sitter Wednesday night, we're gonna go to a motel and we're just gonna spend time by ourselves. Right? We'll get some takeout and we're just gonna go in and lock ourselves in the room. But then something comes up, and it's usually the personal things that people are the first to get rid of. And I've often said to couples, put it in your book. Yeah. Oh, dating myself, or whatever you keep your schedule in. Okay. Put it in your book and treat it as any other business meeting that you have.
Right.
Because if somebody wants something from you and you have a business meeting scheduled for that time, you will think nothing of saying, can't do it.
Right.
All right, we'll have to do it another time. Well, make yourself and make each other that important as well.
Okay, so you think that can keep a man from straying?
Well, but it's that connection, right? Yeah, I mean, you got to also understand, too, that not every man is into that.
Yeah.
Right? There are a lot of older guys that would kind of, look at that attention and say, I'm flattering. It does make me feel good, but, not really interested.
Yeah.
Right? Just like not every guy is interested in a woman shaving her pubic hair. There are a lot of adult men that would look at that and say, you know what? I'm just not really interested in an 8-year-old genital, Right? Yeah, I'm 60 years old. I don't want something that looks like a child, right? So, I mean,
I think it'd be kind of hard to find a woman these days that doesn't do something.
So we said sometimes in our undergraduate class, we're talking to these kids, there used to be this thing called pubic hair.
Right. So on a diagram, sometimes I have to point it out. That stuff, no, it's not dirt.
What is that?
It's not dirt on the slide. Okay, no, it's called pubic hair.
They see 70s porn and go, oh my God, what is that?
Yeah.
Okay, let me ask you this. Is it natural for a man to be attracted to a younger woman? I mean, isn't it all about reproduction?
Not necessarily.
Fertility?
No, it's about passion and eroticism. And
I think everybody, men and women, are attracted to, sexiness.
Yeah.
Youth, vitality.
That's
Youth
why
is sexy.
There's almost a sense of threat and menace with adolescents because their sexuality is so overt, right? Like if a couple of adolescent guys get on an elevator with some adults, women often get very tense because it's just so overt, this sexuality. So who's attracted to 17, 18, 19, 20-year-olds? Everybody.
Right.
But most people have enough restraint and enough of a go, I can go, wow, that's awesome, but, leave it at that,
Right.
and not go as a 55-year-old pursuing a 17-year-old.
But what if the woman pursued you? That's what we're talking about.
But
Again,
even
there's
still,
a
it's a
certain
self-control.
responsibility.
Yeah.
There's
Right.
a certain sense that, the same way people have been arguing lately about consent with, like, alcohol. And can somebody be partying and not obviously inebriated and passing out and, like a date rape kind of situation, but in a club, having a couple drinks, can people hook up and give consent and then wonder, how drunk was she? She had 2 glasses, 3 glasses, and it gets very murky, right? So I think the best ideal would be for men to have a sense of responsibility for a woman, that even if she's trying to initiate, if he can see that she's clearly drunk, a real man, I think, would say, you know what, I would love to, but let me take your number and we'll get together sober, maybe.
Right.
Maybe.
Yeah. Okay. But again, it comes back to the sexual scripts that men are raised on.
Right.
Right? Men, and I will make this kind of global in general, because the vast majority of men, whether you're talking about early adolescence or you're talking about later in their life, have never really learned that just because they may even get aroused they don't have to do anything about it.
Right.
I mean, that's that typical kind of male script. I got an erection, so I have to now do something with this. And guys carry that through their entire lives. So I think the guys that are most vulnerable to something like that are those guys that have that lack of education, that lack of understanding about their own sexuality, that they may feel, you know what, here's an opportunity. Doesn't mean I have to take it.
Doesn't mean I have to take it,
right?
sure.
It's, you know, and I'll often use as an analogy with guys, it's like you can be in a restaurant and you look at this person over there on the table, they just ordered food that just is blowing your mind. It looks like the most amazing thing. It smells absolutely wonderful. You would love to have that. Are you going to knock them out of their chair and take their meal? Right? No, there are times where it's like, wow, that's really good. I would love that, but not now.
But I can't have it. Okay.
Right? That's the basic restraint and just self-regulate. I don't even want to call it self-control. It's basic self-regulation that we do all the time, but for some reason that gets ignored sexually because I think the opportunity and the ego stroke takes over.
That's part of the
let's talk about men's egos for a minute here.
Yes,
I know
those
that
fragile little things.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's one way these younger women get to these older men. They're complimenting them. They look up to them. And maybe they're not getting that from their partner every day.
Well,
or maybe they are, but this is a young, beautiful woman. And
right. Well, the chances are they're not getting it from their partner because if they were, that validation would already be there.
Right.
Okay.
And I think that's also universal for men and women, and why affairs happen as often as they do, because that's like water to a person who's, dying of thirst.
Right.
Esther Perel also talks about this. A sexless marriage often feels like a death.
A death, right.
Right? And people, we would do anything to feel alive. And you go to work and someone says, oh, you look real nice.
Yeah.
I missed you yesterday. That's like crack.
Right.
That's
like crack.
so hard. That's
especially if what he's getting at home is being ignored,
or criticized,
put down, criticized, picked at, constant harping, nothing is ever good enough. And now here comes somebody who is, again, looking at them and saying nice and positive things. I don't care who you are, you respond to that.
Right. Oh, sure.
Now, how far you do, that becomes the issue.
That impulse control, and that's why we bristle. I think we talked a little bit about this the first time we were on the show. We bristle at the idea of sex addiction because there's so many volitional choices. The guy is not going to tell me he gets in the car and lies and says he's going out for cigarettes and goes and has sex with a prostitute because he was overcome by his disease.
His addiction.
Right. Right. And it was in like the people that support that idea is that, would go into a fugue state.
That's
like
crap.
almost kind of like a blackout.
Sure.
Right. So
And
driving down the street and thinking, no, not her. No, not her. No, not him. No, not her. Okay, him. Yeah, that's a blackout.
Yeah.
No, and Ricky said again, very, very important that all of these things. When you look at what it is that becomes the problem, we see there's a whole series of conscious choices that have been made every step of the way.
Yeah.
One another my favorites is Jekyll and Hyde. Right? Everybody knows the parable, and everybody kind of gets the message that we all have this id, this inner potential, this potential for this inner demon. So the mild-mannered Dr. Jekyll drinks the potion, and Mr. Hyde is released, and there's nothing but havoc in his wake, and the next morning regret and remorse. And
Right.
the most important point, though, is glossed over, that he has to drink the potion.
Ah.
Yeah.
You can choose not to.
Right.
But again, that angel and devil thing, the angel runs over your neck and kicks the devil runs over and kicks the angel off, says, do it, do it, do it. And people need better impulse control sometimes with those kind of decisions.
Okay, any other advice for women that want to hang on to their partner? And men. I mean, I don't mean to sound sexist, but
I don't like when people think that sex is obligatory, or I have to have sex with my partner, I have to take care of their needs or give them attention. This is supposed to be a love affair. Right. So this is mutual.
Right. One has
stoking the
works to both ways.
Affection and the admiration and the positive. Very often what happens in sex therapy, the problem that they came in with, moves to the background, and they reconnect through these simple behavioral dates at home, and they're so fond and affectionate and remember that they don't get erection, shemection, doesn't matter. We're still having the best. We feel more connected than we have in 30 years.
Right. And I would say, very simple, that for both men and women, if they just keep as one of their ongoing priorities to always try to be attractive to to other. There's an interesting irony about relationships.
I was going to ask you about that.
Now, I can point out with women how there's this irony that, if you're going to go out to some event or whatever where you don't know anybody, you've never met these people, you'll never see any of them again, you dress to the nines.
You make an effort.
Absolutely. You dress your best, but at home with your partner, we kind of give them their worst. Guys, the same thing. Guys will spend all this time going out of our way, trying to impress. I mean, a guy will almost risk hurting himself, getting out of bed in the middle of the night to fart on the other side of the house early in the relationship, not do it in front of his partner. But all of a sudden, when he gets comfortable, there's the belching and the farting and the scratching and the smelly this. And what happens is when we get comfortable, we tend to give our partner our worst. If we just change that and always think about our partner, that is somebody we still want to impress, even though we've already got them.
Yeah.
Right? But we still want them to be attracted to us. We still want to be attracted to them. If that remains a priority, that's important. I even say to couples, if you wake up every morning and just look at each other and just start your day with, I'm glad to be doing this journey with you. Just get some just acknowledgement of appreciation that this person is somebody you're able to wake up with. It doesn't have to be difficult. It doesn't have to be complicated. Little things that just keep the appreciation going, because that's what we lose. And that's where I think most of the road that leads people to trouble is paved with. This taking for granted, this getting comfortable and stop trying. Right? We should never stop trying. Right? And I think that one thing
that's interesting.
can make a huge difference in how the passion and the love and the connection is maintained in that relationship.
Okay.
I think premarital counseling would be a good idea. The only people I've ever heard of that have to have premarital counseling are like Catholics and Orthodox Jews. And I don't think priests and rabbis. I think couples should meet with a sex therapist for an hour.
Before they get married?
Before they get married.
Yeah.
And talk about how you maintain an erotic relationship.
Because it's a skill. Being a good lover, being a good partner, being a good person, really, is a skill.
Right.
We have to learn how to do these things, but we never do. We just assume we know.
Yeah. No, you're
and
right.
assume that the other person should know. You should know what I want. You should know what I like, right? And again, people just have to learn how to be with each other, how to communicate, how to go from a two me's to an us.
To one. Yeah.
And if guys would learn to see the script is selfish, right? So guys don't tend to be other-centered lovers. Women are almost always. And if people realize that women too, if they were just a little selfish about their own pleasure, that's the biggest turn on for their partner.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah, it
selfish
really is.
about your own pleasure. Okay, hear that, ladies?
Because got a lot of guys.
What exactly do you mean by that? We only have a minute left.
Well, ego is tied up, especially in guys.
Okay.
Right? So if their partner's getting off, they feel good.
Oh, okay.
And it's
All
a
right.
turn on. It's sexy to see your partner really enjoying sexual pleasure.
Great advice. Okay, everybody, see you next week.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Becky.
It's such a pleasure. Thank you. Take care.
You have been watching and listening to The Becky and Boca Show. Tune in every Thursday night at 6 p.m. to discover all the ways to spoil yourself and have a good time in beautiful Boca Raton. See you next week.